So hello and welcome to our webinar, which is an overview of the upcoming business version 14. So my name is Stuart Wheeler, and together with Martin Kowalski, who has joined the pre-sales team, we'll be going through the new features and modules of this upcoming version.
Hello and welcome.
So first of all, the release dates, as you can see, German and English, will be on May the 17th, and Spanish, French and Italian on May the 31st. On all other language, the dates are still to be announced. However, what you will see in your management server is you will get a notification that the version is or has been released and that you should update your solution. So the update itself, if you are updating, you must have at least version 12 and above. To carry out the update, you can either do this from the installation CD, DVD or installation medium you have, and running the upgrade setup, it will recognize that there is a previous version on that system and it will update the management server to version 14. The other method is the usual method of updating via Internet Update. So when you start Internet Update, all you have to do is update your server files, and you've got to make sure that if you want to update your clients, so once your server files have been updated, all the files are then available on that management server to update all of your clients. But of course you've got to make sure that the update program files automatically checkbox is checked to update those clients. By the way, what I forgot at the beginning is the presentation can be downloaded from your panel, and any questions that you have, I'll answer them at the end of the presentation. And this presentation is also being recorded, so you will receive an email with a link to the recording. So updating via these methods will update all of your systems. So your management server will be updated first. The secondary server and the subnet servers can also be updated. The secondary server can be updated online. The subnet server will receive the update from the management server together with the clients. If anyone is using a version older than version 12, first of all they'll have to upgrade that to version 12 or 13 first. It's not possible to upgrade an older version directly to version 14. So let's go through the new modules that have been included. The first one is the biggest change is perhaps the new module, the network monitoring module. So what will this network monitoring tool actually do? So it's monitoring information relating to response time. For example, you can see how well a web server is responding, uptime. You can check to see whether a switch or a router is up, for example, and availability of devices, and also to monitor processes on that end device. So we can monitor hardware devices. That includes network printers. We can monitor SNMP enabled devices, and this includes things like routers, switches, but also operating systems. You can enable SNMP or operating systems, so you can monitor certain events on those systems. And local processes on a Windows PC can be monitored. So what happens is, if you're monitoring something, you'll set a certain threshold. And if an event or a process goes above this threshold or is below this threshold, it will send an email to a specific person to warn them that this threshold has been reached. And also we have a dashboard. This is a web-based dashboard in the Action Center. You can also have a visual warning that something isn't right. You'll have a critical warning if this threshold is, the event is above the threshold. You'll get a warning if this monitored event is about to reach that threshold, or it will tell you that everything is okay.
Just in addition to this, this module is web-based only, so you will have a button within the administrator itself, which will open the browser where you can operate your network monitoring tool.
So here's just a few examples of some of the metrics that we are providing. I haven't got a complete list. This list has been expanded every day, but these are just some of the things you can actually monitor. For example, you can see how much free space you've got on a hard disk, CPU usage, temperature, RAM usage, all this sort of thing. So basically you can monitor everything on your network to see if it's up and running correctly. So you can be warned or pre-warned before something actually fails. So where do we get this information from? There are three main sources where we're getting the information from. One of them is the Windows management instrumentation. This is included in all Windows operating systems. We're using it to monitor events on Windows PCs or servers. The other one is the Simple Network Management Protocol, which is also a widely used protocol for managing networks, and SNMP creates messages when a certain event takes place. So we're gathering this information, or we can monitor this information that is being produced by these SNMP devices or SNMP enabled devices. And as I said, this could be a switch, a router, a printer. It could be an operating system, for example, Linux operating system. So with the Windows measurement instrumentation, this means that you can monitor local processes on a PC or server. To do this, you must install the GData client on that PC. So to monitor local processes, for example, the CPU time and RAM usage, I must install the GData client on that machine to monitor those local processes. This information is then sent from that GData client to the GData management server. And from there, it's sent to the web-based GData Action Center. With SNMP, this is slightly different. You can install the GData client on a PC, and from this PC you can monitor any number of SNMP enabled devices. So one PC could, with a GData client installed, could monitor any number of SNMP devices. We do support all versions of SNMP from version 1 to version 3. There is no configuration required. This means you don't have to set up your SNMP ports on that GData client at all. All it's doing is sending an SNMP GET request to these devices and collecting that information that we've configured in the Action Center. So we're configuring metrics, which I'll talk about in a second, to collect certain information from that device. GData client sends an SNMP GET request to receive that information. It is then passed from that GData client to the GData management server and then again to the GData Action Center. And the last source is from the GData management server itself. You can see on the left there's a list of events that we can monitor. For example, we can count the number of exchange logs that are coming in, and if we can set a threshold, for example, if so many logs come in over a certain period of time, then a warning will be received. And as with the other two, the GData management server will again pass this information on to the action center. So firstly, this is not a stand-alone product. You cannot just purchase GData network monitoring and implement it. You must have at least 5 business licenses so that you can install the GData client to 5 clients. And these 5 clients, either you can monitor local processes on 5 PCs, or you could monitor SNMP devices, any number of SNMP devices. But as 5 is the minimum amount of business licenses that you can purchase, you must at least purchase this license to be able to use the network monitoring. So you can't use a network monitoring on its own. You must have the management server and a minimum of 5 clients. So the client is collecting the data and passing it on to the management server. For us internally, all we do is we set a monitoring flag in our update manager. This will activate network monitoring for our customers. And the customer must create an account in the GData Action Center, which we'll look at in a second. Once this has been completed and everything is working correctly, when you open the management console, you'll get a message popping up telling you that a certain amount of metrics has actually been enabled for network monitoring. So you'll now see in the new version 14 console that we have the tab Network Monitoring. Clicking on this tab will lead you directly to the GData Action Center. What you also have is authentication. So the data that you enter into these authentication fields, this is the same data that you must enter into the Action Center. So if you're doing this correctly, your management server will then connect to that Action Center, and your management server will appear in the Action Center. So how do we actually collect this information? So we've got to create a metric. These metrics is just another word for a sensor. So the GData client is using this sensor to collect the information or to monitor a certain event or process. Within the Action Center, we have certain categories. Within these categories, you can create different metrics or different sensors. So we have the devices, the local processes, the management server, network, for example, network. It could be, for example, HTTP requests, so you can monitor a web server to see how quickly it's responding. Network printers, monitoring the amount of paper still in there, how much toner is still in there, all this is possible, and of course your SNMP devices. So within these categories you'll find a list of certain events or processes that you can monitor. For these local processes here, for example, these are some of the things that you can monitor. And for each process that you want to monitor, you require a metric. In other words, you require one license for the monitoring tool. So every process that you monitor, or any event that you monitor, it will use one of your network monitoring licenses. So looking at inside the Action Center itself, you'll see here that it's at the bottom, the metric log, it's showing you that a threshold has been reached or a threshold has been exceeded. And it'll give you a warning message or a critical warning message. And at the same time, it will send you an email or a specified person an email. And you can select which information you want to see, whether it's happened in the last hour or the last 30 days, or you can customize for the period for which you want to see the data. Also within the Action Center, you can create email groups, and when a certain event takes place or a certain warning is created, it can be sent to a specific email group. This is inside the Action Center itself, the dashboard. This doesn't actually fit on one slide, so I've got it on 2 pages. And what we see at the top here is that we have metrics. This is where you can assign a metric to a certain process or event that we want to monitor. Here you can see the amount of metrics that I've already used. The devices part of it is the client PC where metrics have actually been assigned. So in this case, I've just got one PC where I've assigned metrics to that PC to monitor certain events. And in the top right, you can see the management server itself. So you can add multiple management servers to that Action Center. Below that, we'll see the warnings. So we've got in the left hand, we've got the critical warnings. In the middle, these are just warnings when a threshold is about to be reached. And on the right hand side, the metrics that are reporting that everything is okay on those systems. Below that, the last 3, these are actually favorites that you can add to that dashboard. So if there's some sort of metric that you'd like to keep an eye on, you can add it as a favorite to that dashboard. So in the second half of that dashboard, at the lower part of that dashboard, you do have the logs. This will again show you if there's any critical events, any warnings, or if the system is okay. So trial licenses. For every customer that upgrades or purchases version 14, they do receive 10 free metrics. So we are activating this in our database that every customer with version 14 also has 10 free metrics to use as he wishes. So we can use these metrics to actually test the network monitoring. Metrics can also be created on request. There will of course be events that someone may want to monitor and we don't actually have a metric for it. So if they request via GData a new metric, we can create this quite quickly. It's not a lot of work involved to actually create a metric, but this doesn't mean that if you request a metric, it's going to be ready for the next day. It all depends on the resources we have available at the time to request these metrics. Although the customer does actually receive 10 free metrics, if he does decide to purchase a further metric, for example, if he wants 11, he will have to purchase 11. So he will have the 10 free metrics to test. If he decides to purchase, then he will also have to purchase these metrics that were initially given to him free. I'm not sure of the number of the units that the metrics are going to be offered in. It might be that you have to purchase 10 metrics or 50 metrics or 100 metrics. I'll try and find out that information for you. So let's go on to the next module. The next one is the Squid proxy. We now have integration for Squid proxies. So normally your users are browsing and they're going directly to the internet via the firewall. And of course, if there's no protection between the end user and the internet, they could be downloading all sorts of malware and accessing phishing websites. To prevent this, usually a proxy is used, and the proxy, in this case, now the users will go via the proxy to the internet. On this proxy, it's possible to actually, you have user management, so you can actually configure who can actually use the internet and when they can use it, and you can block websites and downloads also. So now we have a plugin for the Squid proxy, and this plugin will now be scanning all of that HTTP content that is being downloaded from the internet. So it's being scanned for malware and also for phishing websites before it reaches that end user. The plugin for Squid can be installed to that proxy directly from the management console. So this is protection for your HTTP traffic. The next new module is the postfix and sendmail integration. So there are Linux-based mail servers out there. At the moment, you know that we already have the plugin for Microsoft Exchange. We also have our mail gateway solution, which will only run on Microsoft or Windows machines. So if there are customers out there that are using Linux-based mail servers, we now have a plugin for those as well. There are two variants of these mail servers. One of them is an actual mail server is similar to Exchange, so they're using exactly the same as Exchange. Mails are coming into that mail server and being redirected to the clients and vice versa. Or you could install that SendMail postfix server before your Exchange server. So this is just working as a relay. So it's relaying mails from the internet to the Exchange server and also vice versa from that Exchange server out onto the internet. So there's two configurations that are possible. So the SendMail and postfix plugin is also integrated into the GData administrator. So you can push out that plugin from the management console. And it has the same functions as the Exchange server plugin. So it's scanning for malware and it is also a spam filter. And this connection to the SendMail and postfix is via Amavis, which is a framework for virus scanning on Linux servers. So this is what it will look like in the console. I'm sorry this is a German screenshot, but I wasn't able to create an English screenshot. So you can see that we have the SendMail, postfix, and the Squid plugins included, and these can be configured from that management server. The next new module is the centrally managed Mac client. So with this client, it's possible also to install this from the management console, so you can push out the installation to that Mac client from the console. And there isn't much that you can configure, but what you can configure is when the on-demand scans are going to take place. And you can also scan, or you also have real-time scanning enabled on that machine. This isn't like the Linux solution, the solutions for the Linux clients, that only has an on-demand scan. With the Mac client, you have an on-demand and real-time scanning. So the next new module is the alert and notification area. So what we have is a free-floating overview of events that have taken place. You'll see here in the bottom in that overview window, you can place this window anywhere you want within that management console. But clicking on any of the icons will take you directly to that, to those logs where the information is to be found. And it's also going to filter that information. For example, if I click on the signature logs, it's going to take me directly to any log files that are related to updating the virus signatures, and it's going to filter out all other information. So it's taking you quickly to the information that is relevant to those events. In the previous versions, we had our security events and infrastructure logs. They were all to be found in one place. It was in the menu bar under admin. This is where you found all your logs. You'll now see that you have a new tab in the console where all of your logs are going to be displayed. And here also two tabs, one the security events and the other one is the infrastructure logs. So anything eventing to security, of course, will be displayed under the security events. And the other one is the infrastructure logs. And you can see here that things like any configuration changes that have been made on those clients or on the management server are going to be displayed in the infrastructure logs. The last one is exploit protection, but I'll let Martin take over here and explain this a bit more to you.
The exploit protection is a feature that was currently only available in our retail products. We decided to add those features into our business software as well. In general, the exploit protection is a scan on the RAM where it detects anomalies, the stack anomalies. If there are any kind of zero-day vulnerabilities, these anomalies will be detected by our exploit protection and will stop the process that has been started by the malware or malicious files that have been executed on the system. So in general, it will stop the whole process that might get the system infected.
Okay, thanks, Martin. You'll see at the if you download this presentation from the panel, you'll see at the bottom of this page that you have a link. If you click on this link, it will give you more information about exploit protection. So that's all of the modules we've been through. Here are just some of the changes within the management console that you will find. One of them is the pre-assigned groups for the installation package and the expiry date of the installation package. So what this means is when you're creating an installation package, you now have the possibility to select which group that client will be assigned to when it's been installed. So you no longer have to move freshly installed clients per drag and drop to the correct groups. They will automatically be added to that correct group. There is a validity of these packages, so you can limit the period in which these packages can be used. But in this example, it's limited to 30 days. After the 30 days, that package can still be installed, but the client must first be authorized within the management console. This is just a case of right-clicking on that client and authorizing that client. Until it is authorized, it will not be able to download any virus signatures. So if you see any clients in version 14 that are unauthorized, it could be because the installation package that you've used is out of date. So this means you can reject clients. So if there are clients that have been installed with an out-of-date installation package, for whatever reason, you either have to authorize them to allow them to receive updates, or you can leave them unauthorized. Perhaps they shouldn't be in that console for whatever reason. So now you have the possibility to reject those clients connecting to the management server and to download updates. Another new feature is the clients deviating from group settings can be displayed. I don't know if you know what it was like in the past, but if you had a group of clients in your console and one or two of these clients had different settings to that group, it was possible to see that there are clients in that group that have different settings. The problem was actually trying to find those clients. It meant clicking through all of those clients in that group to find out which one had the incorrect settings. Now it's possible just by clicking on that group, it will display any clients within that group that have deviating settings from the rest of the group. So you can then select one of these clients, for example, and click on Display Settings, and it will show you which settings that client has. And if you wish, you can then revert that client to the group settings. Another big help is the automatic group assigning based on hostname, IP, gateway, or domain. So this means that clients that have already been rolled out, you can organize them into groups. For example, if we go to that first machine, you see desktop. So this means that any desktop or any PC starting with the name desktop, and you can see here we're using a wildcard, the star, so any PC with a name that is starting with desktop will be moved to that group workstations. And we can base this on the computer name, IP address, domain, or default gateway. For example, the IP address, if it has any address starting with 192.168.178, it will be moved into this sales group. There's been a redesign of the console itself. So now we have the console divided into two different areas. One of them is the management servers and the other one is the clients. So you can see on the left hand side that we have these two new tabs, the management servers and the clients tab. Selecting the management server tab, it will give you all of that, the configuration possibilities that used to be in the menu bar. I think it was below settings. So everything pertaining to the management servers can now be found by just clicking on that management server tab. And anything pertaining to the clients, their configuration, grouping, etc., that can now be found under the clients tab. So just a quick summary of the modules that have now been included. So we've seen the network monitoring, we have the Squid, POSFIT and Sentinel integration with the plugins. These can be managed from the console, along with the Mac client that it can also be centrally managed from the console. We have the alert and notification area that has been changed, and the inclusion of exploit protection within the business product. Installation package with group assignment and an expiry date. So clients can be isolated until they receive authorization. We can now easily find clients that deviate from or have deviating settings from the rest of the group. Automatic group assignment based on the IP, name, gateway and domain. That's one thing I haven't mentioned is the scheduled scans. One time they could only be run in a system context. You can now run on-demand scans in any user context you wish. There's been a redesign of reports and logs and a redesign of the console. A couple of other changes is, first of all, we now have a smaller installation package. So we've created a new setup engine, and this setup engine enables us to create much smaller packages. So when you're installing remotely across the network, it's not going to block up your network as quickly, as the packages are about half the size they used to be. Another change is the change of encryption between the client and server. So it is changed from 3DES to SSL. So we've now seen all of the changes in the new modules and the changes in version 14. And what we'll do now is just, if you have any questions, we'll just hang on for a couple of minutes and try and answer your questions.
So if there's anything unclear, go ahead and shoot. That's what you're here for.
And if there are no questions, of course, you can send an email to the email address displayed on the screen. Okay, it doesn't look as if any questions are coming in, so I'll say thank you for joining this webinar, and we'll finish the webinar now. And you will receive the email with a link to the presentation, so to the video recording. So thanks for joining, and goodbye.
Goodbye.